You can see right there, that's Jeff Nimoy. Let's see, how should I describe Jeff? I mean, there he is in front of you. But, when I think of Jeff, I think, okay, voice director, right? Voice actor, regular actor, because, voice acting, that's just talking. So, the on-camera actor, producer, director, made his own movie, starred in it, wrote it, saw it
We can't
released.
keep that. That's already acting. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And brain tumor survivor.
Yeah.
So I
A
don't know
lot of
why I
people,
always list that last.
a lot of people think of brain tumor when they think of me. I've become
Yeah.
sort of a spokesman for surviving a brain tumor, which I'm happy to be the poster child for surviving a brain tumor because it beats being the poster child of the guy who didn't survive the brain
Yeah,
tumor.
yeah. They don't do as much promotion as you would
No,
like.
not at all.
Exactly. I read your
But
blog
but when I
about that.
thanks, but when I think of you, Chris, I
Uh-huh.
think actor.
Okay.
I think now podcaster.
Yeah.
But mostly, I think softball player
Softball player. Yeah.
because that's how we met. And I
Right.
didn't know you were a voice actor when we met.
That's right.
We met playing softball, and then one day I asked you what you did. I said, "Oh, I'm a voice director. I'll hire you sometime."
Yeah.
And you said, "SAG only." Like I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah. Hey, look, none of that
none of,
regional industrial.
none of that crap you might be into, Nimoy.
Yeah.
SAG only.
I saw the car you pulled up in. All right. I don't do supermarket openings over the PA system. Yet little did I know you were like one of the more prolific directors of, like anime dubbing.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm the Spielberg of anime, as some people
yeah.
call me.
Well,
Yeah, I've done some big ones.
that was the last time I saw you in person. Was I was doing some anime dubbing for Ultraman,
Correct.
and you were directing it, and we're just having a great session. Anime is once you've technically got it, it's a pretty chill experience. Once you've
Yeah,
got it down, you usually know the person on the other side of the glass. You're in rhythm, and when you're done, you have a hang. We're hanging out, and I'm just chatting with you, and then it's softball. You still playing the softball, and then brain tumor. It's like,
yeah.
oh, hey, wait a minute.
You buried the lead.
Yeah, it's like you get to, I know it's probably not good to open with that either, but somewhere between then and now,
Yeah.
I would have expected that. But how about you enlighten us as to what
Uh-huh.
what it was like and what it's been since?
Well, it was the scariest, obviously, moment of my life. It was, when a doctor actually says the words, "You have a brain tumor," you freak out at first a little bit, but then your producer mode takes over and you're just like, all right, this is a problem. Producers solve problems. Let me just solve this problem.
Right.
And afterwards, I sort of broke down. I got pretty weepy. But once that went away, I realized I had a second lease on life, and pretty much everything has changed. And I only do projects I really love now, and I don't waste time. And I made that movie, as you mentioned earlier,
Right.
because I was just, for years I've been in the business for decades, and you try to get things going in this business, a movie, a screenplay, a TV show. And it's all about asking for permission. Basically, you're begging people with money behind studio
Right.
walls to let you do what you want to do.
Right.
And then finally, after the brain tumor, I was like, I'm done begging. I'm done asking. I'm
Yeah.
just making it. And I just went up to people that I really thought would be interested in making this movie with me. And I just told them all, look, I'm tired of asking for permission. And if you're tired in too, come join me. Now, I don't know if anyone's going to see this movie. I don't know if it'll even be any good, but I have to make a movie because that's what I originally came to LA, to do in this business.
Yeah.
And voiceover takes over and you leave, your
Right.
career takes over
Yeah.
and you just start going through open doors, anything that will lead to paying the bills, pretty much.
Right.
For me and you, that led down the voiceover road. We both did other things. I know you
Yeah.
were a stand-up.
Yeah.
The softball game that we played in, there was a bunch of stand-up
Populated
comedians.
by stand-ups mainly. Yeah.
Right, right. So and I did a little stand-up. I did a lot of improv,
Yeah.
but voiceover manifested itself in my life,
Yeah.
and I wanted to get back to movie making, and I just did it. I just went ahead and did it. No excuses, no more waiting. I
Mhm.
just did it, and it turned out dare I say, great, good
Yeah.
enough for a distribution deal anyway, which is way beyond most people get for their independent films. You know,
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's called Famish, correct?
it's
Which, by
called
the
Finish.
way, it's a
Yeah,
great title.
thank you very much. So, because I didn't have a lot of resources to make this film, I figured the best way to get a lot of production value is to, I get invited to these anime conventions all over the world.
Right.
So I went to an anime convention and I said, like, could you bring me and the rest of the cast will be other voice actors and we'll come and we'll make a movie. And we made a romantic comedy that
Hmm.
took place at an anime convention.
Right.
And because our names are in the program and pictures are everywhere, our names are everywhere, I figured let me do a Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I played a character named Jeff Nimoy. And
Uh-huh.
the other characters like Lex Lang was as Lex Lang.
Right.
A lot of people played themselves, but fictionalized versions of themselves, obviously.
Right.
And so it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek look at the actor's experience at a voice at a convention, but it's more than that. There's some drama in it. There's some heart. I wanted to make a real movie, not just some
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, we're at the anime
Right.
convention.
And there's a
No,
there's a romance at the heart of
there's
it, right?
romance. There's heart. My character is going through some very hard times in his career, and he's down on his luck. And he goes to this anime convention, and suddenly he's Paul McCartney,
Hmm.
and how you get treated at these conventions.
Yeah.
You're nobody in LA, especially on the voiceover side, where no
Right.
one knows your face.
Right.
But then you go here, and all of a sudden, people are treating you like gods, and this character falls for all the pitfalls of small-time celebrity at an anime convention.
Right. I've always described that too as a selective sort of fame that basically means you can go to the supermarket and there will be no paparazzi. They won't have the place staked out. They're not going to look at what you're buying. They're not going to look at who is visiting you. You
Right.
can live in pretty much complete anonymity. But if you
Right.
go into the right room, if you go to the right convention center at the right time, they will carry you around on their shoulders because
Exactly.
you have done something that is connected with a certain
Right.
segment of the population to the degree of sometimes obsession
Yeah.
and like uber fandom. They'll cosplay your character and it really is kind of a little bit of a head zap, but
It
in
is, which is what the
yeah,
movie's all about. This
right,
character completely falls for the head trap,
yeah,
and he starts acting, bad behavior.
right,
I wouldn't go as far as saying he's a Harvey Weinstein type,
right,
but when young girls hit on him,
right,
he looks at them, and boom, right away he starts getting canceled, and all of
mm-hmm,
these things, and he's kind of innocent, but at the same time, it's the ego boost he's been dying for
right,
until he realizes the reality. And it's the fans who sort of pull him out and
yeah,
realize, like it's a wonderful life. You've really had a wonderful career after all.
yeah,
Don't be so down on yourself. That
right.
sort of.
Exactly. I remember getting like I haven't done the convention circuit per se. I've done a few Comic Cons, which is sort of the Mount Olympus of
Yeah.
conventions. The funny thing is nobody makes money at Comic Con. You go, you spend money to get
You're
there.
telling me. I
Yeah.
just spent a fortune I got invited with this movie Famish to Comic Con, and it cost me money.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember the one person I've seen making money at Comic Con, and this is no surprise, is Steve Bloom. I remember I was there with like my wife, and at the time we were still just dating, and they
Yeah.
said, "You want to come do Comic Con?" I said, "Of course." It was Mark Evanier's Cartoon Voices panel, so I did the panel. 800 people there. It's awesome. My wife and I are walking the floor afterwards, and there are a few guys that are actually lined up in a special area selling stuff. And I thought, of course, Steve would be there. Steve kind of sits at a different place,
He
right?
does, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I'm the first guy who put him on national TV on Digimon.
Really?
I'm pretty sure he was doing a lot of small time anime, which now is big time anime, but back then,
Of course.
this is pre-cable.
Right. Right.
There wasn't a place for this stuff.
Yeah.
It was just straight to video back then.
Right.
And he auditioned for me for season 2 of Digimon, and his career obviously has taken
Yeah,
off.
he's done okay. But this is one of the things I always liked about Steve, because I've worked with him on a couple of things, not as much as a lot of other people have, but he's always been this
He was
really
on
grounded.
Ultraman. He was
Yeah,
on Ultraman. That's not in this
yeah.
booth with me. Yeah,
But he's always been a pretty grounded, nice guy. He's been
yeah,
around for a while. And while there's this line of people waiting to get things signed, he sees me, gets up, shakes my hand. What's up, man? Just doesn't play the big shot. But he's a big
yeah.
shot in
He
this
is.
world.
I remember when things started happening like that. I had him in a session, and I said, "Steve, all these people are telling me how famous you are." They were like, "You know Steve Bloom?" And I'm like, "Is it a
Yeah.
big deal to know you, Steve?"
Yeah.
He's like, "I don't
Hey,
know."
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I remember one of the first doses I got of this was I was playing softball in, let's see, this would have been maybe 2007. And I had done Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. I was Peter
Right.
Potamus. I'm playing softball with a couple of people. One of them asked what I do. I say voice actor, anything I might have seen, Harvey Birdman, Peter Potamus. Oh my God, wait a second. And they get their phone, they call their husband or their boyfriend. Can you do
Yeah.
Peter? And I'm doing Peter Potamus into the phone. Yeah, did you get that thing I sent you? And I'm sitting there in my softball gear. And of course my head is just going like this. Just
Yeah.
yeah, and it can zap your head. It can lead you to believe that
Yeah.
perhaps there's something there's something special about everybody, but
Right.
if you're walking around thinking, well, now I need to be treated a little bit differently, that's where it can mess you up
Yeah.
because
I
you don't
actually,
need to
uh,
be.
I actually wrote a part for Steve in Famish, but he said I don't do on camera. So he knows his spot, you know?
He
He,
just had no interest in ever
he
being
was
in
like,
front
I
of
do
anyone's
not want to
camera.
be on camera. I'm a voiceover guy. That's my spot
Wow.
in life. And I know my boundaries and I'm going to stay in my lane, you know?
Well, just to be fair, that's probably the same thing he would tell Spielberg. Yes, I know Saving Private Ryan Part 2. I'm sure it's going to do very well. I don't do on camera, Steve. Call Jeff Nimoy. He'll tell you.
Well, Steve Bloom's loss was Lex Lang's gain. That's all I'm going to say.
There you go. And I remember I met Lex Lang through a poker game, and it was
Uh-huh.
voice actor poker game I'm playing. I didn't know Lex, but he's just nice guy, funny guy. Would
Yeah,
do these
great.
really funny Connery impressions. So now Connery's going around and, yes, yes,
Yes.
Connery, more Connery. And then he would have a way of marking when the blinds for the betting should go up.
Hey,
He'd have
hey,
music
hey,
on. Yeah,
the
the
blinds
blinds
are
are
going
going
up.
up. I think
Yeah.
that's really funny. It's
No,
like,
I
why
played in
didn't I
that
think
game
of that?
I played in that game for 20 years, and
Yeah,
Zoom, they still do it over Zoom post-pandemic. I'm just not a
yeah.
Zoom guy, you know?
Yeah. It's it is different because like I said, I met you, I guess that I met you through softball, and then the
Yeah,
last time I see you is probably right before the pandemic, maybe a
it
few
was. It
months.
was March, like no, not March, but I was editing Famish.
Okay.
Well, let's see. So it must have been 2019,
Okay.
April of 2019. So almost a year
Okay.
before the
Yeah,
pandemic.
almost a year before.
Yeah,
And you find ways to keep in contact with everybody, and
yeah,
then I don't know, it came on abruptly. We always like to think, well, we saw it coming. We did, but the way we had to change was a lot more abrupt.
right.
So our change was fairly abrupt, and then it has slowly been loosening up a little bit. And like
Hmm.
we've been loosening up a little bit. We moved outside of the city and we're doing more. We're still being careful, but we're able to do more. And I'm able to see people more now. So
Yeah,
I don't put people through an airlock before they come to my place. I just try to
yeah.
make sure they're relatively responsible.
I'm sort of like that.
Yeah.
I have to know them very well, know they're vaccinated to be inside with them.
Right.
But otherwise, it's all outdoors for me because I do have these lingering issues from the brain tumor. It's not
Yeah.
like I got out of surgery. I was like, woohoo,
Yes.
I'm 100% again. I
Right.
will always have issue. I mean, I could see all the pills right over here.
Okay. Yeah.
Zoom site that I have to take on a daily basis, and
Right.
injections and things like that. A lot of doctor's visits, but I'm alive, so I'm
Right.
not complaining. But I do have to be extra careful.
Of
So
course.
anytime I go inside, it's mask. It's my little face shield
Uh-huh.
that I staple to my Mets hat,
Right.
and but mostly I see people outdoors only. I
Yeah.
really, I just don't want to take the chance.
That's understandable. And last night I was at the, like, here's the way I'm operating now. Now, I also live in an area where it's more sparsely populated. So
Hmm.
the infection rate is lower. And for the most part, when I go inside the supermarket, there are very few people around. In fact, I used to joke, how does this place stay open? I've never seen more than 5 people inside here during rush hour. 5
Yeah.
p.m., there's 5 people inside, and it's a nice supermarket. I thought, okay, great. Less people, less hassle. So I'm there with the kids last night. We're rushing in to just pick up some couple of little various sundries. And I said, okay, if there's no one around, you can lower your mask. You can breathe without it. When we
Yeah.
get to the checkout, raise your mask. All right. You're going to be around people. Do them the courtesy. Do yourself the courtesy. The cashier, a lady probably around my age, she has her mask up and she thanks me. She said, thank you for wearing your mask. The other day, a man was mocking me for wearing a mask,
Mm.
saying, you're afraid of life. And meanwhile, the guy is buying stacks of liquor. And I guess he didn't see the irony in numbing his brain with alcohol and accusing someone else from, of retreating from life.
I'm not afraid of life. I just want life to
Yeah,
continue
I'd like
for me.
more of it.
Yeah, more of it. More of this, please.
Yeah.
I went to San Diego for Comic-Con, like we said, and nobody's wearing a mask in San Diego. No one.
How did you navigate?
Waitresses, waiters, nobody.
Yeah, how did you navigate Comic Con? I mean, I guess with the face shield and the mask, like you
I
talked about.
looked like I was a deep sea diver.
Right, right.
All people saw was this big
Yeah,
shield of air floating
yeah.
out from there.
I kind of, the way I see it now is I'm pretty fit and healthy, knock on wood. Although what you told me, and like geez, I would have told you this. My wife has an aneurysm.
Oh
Okay.
wow! I think you did mention
I
this to
probably
me.
did
You
because
did talk about
you
this.
tell me your story, and I tell you that my wife at 49 had a heart attack.
Mm,
Completely healthy woman,
that's what you told me.
doesn't smoke, doesn't drink,
Right.
and has never done drugs. Her arteries were pristine when they did the what the hell do they call it, angioplasty. She had
Yeah.
2 angioplasties, right? No plaque on her arteries. They say her arteries are completely clean. What she had was called a SCAD, a spontaneous coronary artery dissection, or sudden coronary artery dissection. In other words, your artery just tears. There's no warning, right?
Yeah.
Now, there could be warning signs like, oh, I'm fatigued, I had a little trouble breathing. But when a woman presents these symptoms at an ER, they say, oh, you're just being hysterical or you're having panic attacks.
Yeah.
She just she had felt fatigued over the previous couple of days. She's folding laundry. We're watching Kimmel host the Oscars. And then she says, it's like my chest hurts. Like, do you feel panicky? Do you feel anxious? No, I don't like that this is happening. And then over the course of 20, 30 minutes, it gets severe. The ER has to, the paramedics have to come and get her. She goes through this. Her artery had just spontaneously tore. And it was because afterwards they later looked at it and said, well, your artery gets narrower here and there's a little loop in your arteries, which is unusual. We think that's where it was structurally compromised. And so you've had this artery tear. But it's going to heal. They didn't have to do anything else, but she has to take metropolol for the rest of her life and baby aspirin 2-3 times a week. So meanwhile, while she's healing, and she's completely healed from that, while she's healing, they said, we need to do an all-over scan to make sure everything else is fine. Oh, you have an aneurysm in your brain. It's like, what's that? It's like, well, it's a tiny little clot, but there's a 5 in 1,000 chance that it will ever rupture.
Right.
So if we were to operate and remove it, there's a 1 in 100 chance that you'd have complications. And brain surgery complications, as you might know, can be quite life-threatening. So it's better that we do nothing about it.
I actually have a very similar situation right now. When they did the MRI, they found two tumors.
Yeah.
One's back here. But they said it's so small, it's about the size of a, pinky nail at this point.
Yeah.
This was 4 years ago.
Right.
And they said, but unless it starts really doing something or growing insane, we're not going to touch it because it's, like you said, it's just intrusive. It's too intrusive, and there's no point on it. I also had years of symptoms as well, but doctors never put two and two together to say, oh, you're tired? You must have a brain tumor. Just like
Gotcha.
no one said you're tired, you must have a tear in your artery, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And they could never tell. Like in her case, they didn't know if it was something that slowly happened or suddenly happened. It's anyone's guess. They don't know why these things happen sometimes. Sometimes they know because someone's doing extreme fitness. They're doing something extreme.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just happens. And they said in the case of the cardiologist that treated my wife and still sees her twice a year, he says a lot of times this happens with women whose hormones are changing. And the next year, my wife's menopause basically started. Like versions of it, little things. And now she's full on in the middle of it. But I'll never forget you telling me this, and then a doctor telling me this when I had like like I got a little pain in my ear, and then after a couple of weeks it was gone, and he said, yeah, it's could be a musculoskeletal thing where you tweak this or that, and he goes, it's fine, and he says we don't know much about the body. If you ever meet someone that tells you they know why everything happens, run from them and
Yeah.
hide your wallet. We
Yeah.
don't
My
know.
neurosurgeon said, because I was like, I have two brain tumors.
Yeah,
He said, if we MRI'd everyone's brain, you'd
yeah,
find all kinds of stuff in there,
right.
but most of which is harmless.
Right. And I remember I did cognitive behavioral therapy back around '03 to '07, right? And I did it because I was having anxiety, panic attacks, things like that. And yet, while you're busy having a panic attack, if you're like me, actor with a big imagination, you start looking things up. Oh, now you look anything up, and it's brain tumor. It's a brain tumor. You get tingling in your extremities, brain tumor. In your case, it actually was, but in my case, it was no. You
But
just have
the doctors never put it together for me.
yeah, exactly. Like you're
I
the
should have
only
called
guy
you.
that yeah. I remember my therapist telling me, he says, right now you're going through what we call somatic painting. You're reading about things, you're mad at your brain is very powerful, you're
Yeah.
creating these things, and sure enough, when I got a handle on the anxiety, started, getting back into a good rhythm, these other things go away. It's when, like you say, when it doesn't go away, even when everything else in your life is fine, that's when you realize, all right, maybe I should talk to somebody. And maybe in your case, what, 10 doctors?
A lot of doctors for a lot of symptoms and different specialties for different symptoms.
Yeah.
But eventually, it just came to a head when the tumor started hemorrhaging,
Right.
and I just had the headache of all headaches, and
Yeah.
I had to go to the ER. There was no other,
Right.
there was no living at
Yeah.
that point. In fact, I had days to live at that
Wow.
point.
Yeah.
So it was pretty remarkable that I did make it. Most doctors that I've seen since said, if this happened to you 30 years ago, you'd just die.
Yeah.
Nobody would catch it, and you would just die.
Right. And it wouldn't have been the fun kind of dying like, oh, skydiving or,
No, I would have been crawled up in a bed, not able to open my eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
From
this
the
is,
pain was so severe.
yeah. And I remember talking to you about it in that moment when we were at the studio, and I said, I have read that people who have gone through a traumatic, life-altering event and something that even compromises their health, a year later, invariably say, I am no less happy than I was before this happened. In fact, sometimes they're even happier. And you said, in my case, in your case, you feel as though it has actually improved your outlook on life.
100%. You can sort of say like, well, there was me before college and me after college. There's me before the brain tumor and after the
Yeah.
brain tumor.
Yeah.
And friends have noticed too. I don't get as angry as much at things. Things don't bother me that much.
Right.
Just what's important in life and
Right.
what's not.
Right.
Most of it's not.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I think there are some people that perhaps they're just fortunate in how they're wired. Other people do go through what you went through. And then some people are just good learners. And then, now the people I'm talking about are a very small subset of the population. The rest of the population is wandering around, getting upset and bent out of shape over things they can't control.
Right.
And I remember my therapist telling me, what I'm teaching you, how to focus on things that are in your control and how to build a skill set around that. He says, 90% of the population doesn't want to know this. They know it's true, but they don't want to do it. It's really difficult. And in your case, you had to go through literally a threat to your life and come out the other side after what was a really rough patch to have this knowledge and to have this point of view, which I'm sure you share with people. And I'm sure sometimes you see them and you think, I'm talking to a brick wall here. They're not going to get it.
In fact, a lot of people who are, there's no better word for it, dying. A lot of people who have been given bad diagnoses come reach out to me and they ask for, how did you handle this? And a lot of them are not going to change. They're just not. And some do and some don't. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell those people, and I don't know why the gratitude worked with me, but it did. I'm just grateful for every real friend I have and every real experience I have. And I'm just grateful to be on this planet, really, you know, and I don't waste my time anymore with fluff. It's just gone.
Right. I remember as I was trying to, what my therapist said basically is you're rewiring your brain doing this. You have a lot of associations and ideas in your head that you think are absolutely true. And for you, they have been because they've been working for you, but just barely. So we're reintroducing new things. We're introducing new things. It's going to take a long time, and you're going to fight it because it's uncomfortable. Because you're telling yourself what you thought was true for 30-something years is not. Now, the way I did it was you have to roll up your sleeves and do it over a period of years, and I'm nowhere near perfect. I have a better idea. In your case, it happened, obviously you'd been presenting symptoms for years, but you became acutely aware that something was not right for several months. Yeah. And that's when, you didn't get the benefit of this new lease on life until you got on the other side of it, but I imagine it must have been like a click that went off, a switch being flipped.
Right. It was, absolutely. It was right after I got home from the hospital. You're not allowed to take a shower in the hospital because of germs and all this.
Right.
And the day I got released, I was in the shower, and like I said, all that, the water's hitting me, all that mental producer mode of problem solving is washing away, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I had brain surgery yesterday. And I just fell to the ground in the shower, the bottom of the shower, and cried my eyes out like one of those little kid cries.
Ugly tears, as we call it.
Ugly tears that you used to have. Yeah. And I got out, and some very close friends were waiting for me out there, in my living room. And just over the course of that next week of people visiting me and going over things and them relaying how grateful they are that I made it. And, it just cleared things up for me. It really did.
Yeah.
And I had some PTSD over it for a long time too. And that took some getting over. Every time I saw a nurse, I broke into tears, just like,
of course,
it all came back, that scaredness. But you mentioned control, things you don't have control over. And I was like that for my whole life, freaking out about things I can't control. And now I'm like, oh, well, so what? It'll work out or it won't.
Right.
Because I'm on borrowed time. I'm playing with the house money.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, oh, well, I already had a great life.
I remember, and this, my wife, I think has a version of that. She's not afraid of hospitals or nurses or anything like that. She never has been. But for a long time, and I don't know if she's still cool with this yet, she doesn't like to think of herself as a survivor. We went to this SCAD sort of seminar about 3 years ago, and there were other SCAD survivors, and they had T-shirts. Here's a T-shirt, SCAD survivor. She didn't want to wear it, and she said, I don't like thinking of myself as a survivor. And I said, why? And she says, because it makes me feel like I was somehow a victim or I almost died. And I said, well, baby, you did you went into cardiac arrest. 8% of people who go into cardiac arrest survive. The rest die. She came out of it. I said, being a survivor should make you feel tough as shit. It should make you feel proud. Now, who am I to tell you what to think? But I want you to not run from that term because it means you did something most people don't do.
Well, I had the exact same experience for a long time as your wife.
Yeah.
When people would say, "This is Jeff. He had a brain tumor. He almost died." I play it down. I go, I didn't almost die. Let's not, I
Yeah.
never went into like cardiac arrest. My heart never
Right.
stopped.
Right.
Like, yeah, I almost died. My
Yeah.
temperature was like something like 105.7 or something.
Right.
But I was never on the table like clear. I
Yeah.
was never that far. So I would downplay it all the
Right.
time when people would bring it up.
Right.
For that same sort of embarrassment, like I don't deserve to be called that.
Yeah.
But I see now how other people are, and I'm like, I guess I am a lot effing tougher than they are.
Yeah. You can curse if you want. I don't care.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
good. I didn't know.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, I used to tell people if I can do it, you can do it, and I'm starting to realize, well, maybe not everybody can do it. I might just be that one in a select few that can
Right.
do certain things.
Right.
Like make a movie or survive a brain tumor.
Yeah.
Not
Or
everyone can do everything.
exactly. I mean, I think we're all filled with enormous potential, but perhaps not everyone has the motivation or the inclination to activate it. And it could be that you were never going to make that movie unless you survived a brain tumor, or it could
Yeah.
be that you would have hit 60 and you would have thought, fuck it, I'm making it, I don't care. Wherever you have to get to where you
Yeah.
realize, I don't want any more of what I've been experiencing. I'm tired of getting the same thing over and over
Yeah.
again. In my case, I remember thinking I was getting to the point where I was not very functional. I was still functioning. I was recording. I had not missed a beat. I didn't miss any softball games. It's funny what's important. Yeah, I think I have something seriously wrong with me, but I ain't missing softball. Come on, that's fun. I got to get out of the house, right? But I remember getting to the point where I thought, I'm tired of this, and I've hit sort of what was a bottom for me. I was not functioning well. And I wasn't a shut-in, but I was not functioning well. And I thought, okay, I don't want to go back to that. And I fought it for a while. And I guess I'm learning, too, what you learned. The way you think of yourself is so integral to your day-to-day, second-to-second existence that when you change the way you think of yourself, it can be earth-shattering. And
Yeah.
it needs to be in a way that you can wrap your head around.
Right.
And Survivor, a lot of people don't like to think of themselves in that way. They need time with it. In your case, you had enough time with it. You realized, no, okay, that is what I am, and I'm okay with that.
I've been thinking about the word survivor too for a long time now. My grandparents survived World War One. They literally walked through Europe to safety,
Right.
until they can get passage to America, like through war-torn Europe.
Wow.
Bullets flying over their heads at times.
Right.
And they were survivors. They just weren't going to let anyone stop them. But they
Right.
were children practically when they did
Yeah.
it. And when this happened to me, I was 50, but I channeled them a lot through this. I channeled their strength, and they sort of raised me, my grandparents, much more than my parents did. And I just felt like I could channel their strength to get me through this. And I've carried that with me post brain tumor. Like,
Yeah.
you can complain about things, or you can just say, I'm going to make my own world.
Yeah.
This world's not working for me. I'm going to make my own.
Right. And you could see it as you could couch it in the I guess in the sort of vocabulary of my DNA has their DNA. If they can walk through Europe, I can walk through this brain surgery.
Right.
It's the same DNA that's going to give you a brain tumor. Yeah, but it's the same DNA that's going to give me the strength to get through the brain tumor.
Well,
So
for
I'll
that
take
same
that.
thing, it's like, oh, it's the worst thing that ever happened to you. At the same time, it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have all this new outlook if I
Right.
never had it.
Yeah.
I'd be the same miserable bastard I used to be.
Right. I remember reading, I was at a coffee shop in Santa Monica on Main Street. I don't know, certain things stick in your mind. And I guess I have some time before I have to be somewhere else. And it's in the evening. And it's this really cool coffee shop on Main near the edge of Venice. And I see this book, and it's Michael J. Fox's Autobiography. So this was, whenever it came out, this was a newer book. And I read the first few pages, and I was fascinated by it because he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he had been living with it. By the time I read this book, he'd been living with it for at least 15 years, and it's progressive disease.
Hmm.
And he said, here's what my life is like right now. And it's actually improved a bit because the medication and treatment have improved. But at the time, he talked about how limited his life was dealing with Parkinson's, how it had changed how he had to relate to everybody, including his wife and kids. And he said, if you had asked me, would I have not wanted to get Parkinson's and keep going the way I was going, I would say, no, not on your life. I will take
Yeah.
this because it's made me a better human being. I'm
Yeah.
more in touch with what really matters.
I feel the same way. I always say to people, I don't recommend you getting a brain tumor,
Yeah,
but I recommend every single person surviving a brain tumor. It
right.
changes everything.
Right, exactly. And part of the reason I think I wanted to be able to talk to you about this is because in my time streaming, I stream on Twitch and I talk to a lot of people who are gamers, a lot of people who make their connections through social media and just in a virtual sense. And a lot of them are also dealing with anxiety. And it's kind of
Yeah.
the chicken and the egg. Did the anxiety get exacerbated when you started spending more time in the virtual world? Or were you an anxious person and you didn't feel comfortable in social circles, so you retreated to the virtual world? But regardless, as my therapist would say, the treatment is the same. You've got to try to get out and connect with the world as much as you can. And if there are things that scare you about that, just know that you are capable of handling them with the right attitude and with the right amount of practice and
Mhm.
perspective
Yeah.
and expectations. And one of the things I would hope people would get from listening to you tell this story is that whatever it is that might be bothering them, it's not a brain tumor that's going to kill them. It is perception. Some of it could be natural wiring that also you can work on, and that there are ways that as long as you're not, paralyzed by it. Some people need pharmacology to intervene, but for the
Mhm.
most part, getting someone's point of view, a brain tumor survivor's point of view, a heart attack survivor's point of view, a Holocaust survivor's point of view, I think is a good attitude adjustment to let people know nothing's going to happen to you that
Yeah.
you can't handle. Because look at what these other folks have been able to handle.
Right.
I would hope.
Well, we'll be right back to
Yeah. And now a word
ER,
from Parquet Margarine.
ER stories of the voiceover. We'll be right
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. Well, having said that, you did San Diego Comic-Con. You
Yeah.
notice, unfortunately, nobody's wearing masks, but this is COVID's here to stay, and maskless people are here to stay. So we're just going to find our way with it. But are you trying to do more cons again? Are you trying to get back out there and not just meet fans, but maybe tell this story?
I am, but not for the story. I just want people to see Famish, really. I just want,
Yeah,
you know, every artist wants their work to be seen or heard in our case
right.
sometimes. You just want it. And trust me, if Famish was some piece of
Yeah,
garbage, I wouldn't have shown it to a soul. I just
right.
wouldn't, just from my own artistic
For
sensibility.
your own
I,
ego protection. Yeah.
right, I would have just kept it to myself, But a lot of people did say at the little screening I had for friends and family way back when, they were like, we were so worried, Thursday night, a friend made a movie. Oh my God, this is going to be the worst.
Yeah.
Please, at least it's only 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But afterwards at the Q&A, they were all, thank you for actually making an entertaining piece of work. So we're not like, oh, this was the worst. You have to say to friends, hey, good job.
Yeah.
You
You
have to
really
fake
worked
the way.
hard on that.
Yeah, your work shows. But instead they were like really genuine about it. So and then it got released, it got a digital worldwide distribution, and then the pandemic hit. And I'm like, damn, and I was gonna go to every convention, showing it, and then, I lost like 2, 3 years of momentum. So now I just want to put eyeballs and make people
Right.
aware of this movie. And not just for me, but for the people that worked hard on it. No one makes a movie by themselves
Right.
in a vacuum. It takes a village, literally. And everyone worked hard on this, and I want to show it for them too. Nobody got paid except
Right.
the music, except some of the guys who sold me some music, a license some music.
Right.
So I just want it for that. So I am, but at the same time, I'm a little weary of travel. I'm a little weary. I had this Comic-Con, 500,000 people. I'm not really there because I'm sort of in this bubble. I'm the boy
Yeah,
in the bubble.
yeah.
Same with Anime Expo that I did 2 weeks before that. And
Hmm.
I'm really just going to concentrate on smaller cons for
Right,
my own well-being, and also like at Comic-Con at 2 in the afternoon, there's a million things to do. I
right.
want to go to a convention so small that I'm the only thing happening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Exactly. Right. Well, also, I mean, as we both can attest, I mean, even though I'm not doing them, at least not at the moment, I'm probably
Yeah.
ramping up to do some maybe next year. But
Hmm.
cons have, for the past several years, have just exploded.
Yeah.
It used to be it was four or five things that happened over the course of a year.
Right.
Every city has a con now.
Yeah. Well, I
Every
mentioned I
area.
mentioned this in the movie too, that my character had not been to a con in 10 years.
Right.
And when he went back then, it was like nothing. It was rinky dink. In
Yeah.
fact, I personally, not my character, Jeff Nimoy, but the real Jeff Nimoy, in I think it was 98, I was invited to Comic-Con and I'm like, What's that?" I had
Yeah.
no idea what it was. And they were like, "Well, they want you to be on this panel." And they named like four voiceover actors. And I'm like, those guys, forget it. I'm much
Yeah.
better than them.
Right.
I'm not going to, lower myself and be on a panel with them. I hired
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
So it was completely different back then.
Yeah.
And now I'm like begging, "Hey, will you take me,
Yeah.
please?"
I know. You think it's going to be like that scene from The Wrestler where Mickey Rourke's just sitting there with his Sharpie, and every other wrestler there is in a wheelchair. It's at the American Legion. And yeah, it is not that. And on top of that, I would think anyone who is who's ever been to a con, who has a voice actor or voice actors whose work they follow, who gets into a lot of anime, who comes under the umbrella of what happens at conventions or what constitutes conventions would
Mm,
be, I think pretty well served in checking the movie out because it's
I
their
think so.
experience.
I think so. But I also want to say that a lot of people who've seen it had no idea what a convention was like.
Hmm.
And they were like, "I had no idea that world exists,
So
let
this is a
alone."
doorway for them into
It's a
that world.
doorway for them because the movie's heart. It's a romantic comedy straight
Okay.
up. So it just happens to take place at
Right.
this anime convention.
Right.
So if you don't know anything about anime, you'll find out a lot about anime conventions.
Right.
And if you know anime, you'll get all the little Easter egg,
Right.
hints that I
Yeah.
makes it special for you. Plus, I'm talking about shows I actually worked on,
Yes.
characters I actually played,
Right.
things like that too.
So yeah, you're gonna get that natural authenticity that you can't fake,
Right.
and the little bit of screenwriting I've done, I know that one of the best rules to follow is don't say it when you can show it.
Yes.
So actually setting it at actual conventions
Right.
is a really easy way to show a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and I don't bother spending a lot of time explaining it either. Like you
Right.
said, this is what an anime convention is. Draw
Right.
your own conclusions.
Yeah, people are pretty smart too. They like to. Orson Welles said this: give the audience a hint of a scene,
Right.
let them meet you halfway, let them do the work with you, and they'll really get into it. They become invested.
Yeah, and I'm not making fun of the fans either or the cosplayers. I'm just presenting them how
Right,
they are, and at the end of the movie, I actually depend on them for my own peace of mind.
right.
Like, because we record these things, Chris, in these windowless rooms,
Yeah.
dark windowless rooms, and
Yep.
in recording studios, and we're not aware when we're recording these things. We're like, "Oh, the fans are going to love the way I'm saying this line." We're in it. We're in the project. We're
Right.
talking to each other. We're involved. And then you go to this convention and you realize the impact you've actually had
Yeah.
on strangers' lives. Not like a fantasy, but a real impact,
Oh yeah.
especially anime, where there are so many autistic fans
Mm-hmm.
and anxiety-ridden fans, like you were
Mm-hmm.
talking
Oh
about.
yeah.
Um, like it means a lot to them,
Yeah.
more than it means to you, because to
Yeah.
you it's a phone bill,
Right.
at times,
Yeah.
and it makes you really aware of them,
Mm-hmm.
not just the industry side of it.
Well, that's one of the things I enjoy about streaming as well, is that you have a way to connect with fans that you're not going to make it to the con where they live. And some of these people don't have enough money to get to a con because, as
Yeah.
you now know, cons are expensive for
Oh,
someone
yeah.
to go to. And so how are they going to make a connection with this actor or director whose work they admire? And yes, you do get a dose of what it means to them. You see their fan art, you see their
Yeah.
cosplay.
Yeah, I put a lot of that in the movie too.
Oh,
People get
yeah.
that
Oh,
art. We
absolutely.
tried to put a lot of it in the movie.
Well, I also understand now that because I'm 53, and so you're a couple of years older than me at most.
56, yeah.
56. Okay. So when we grew up, if you were a nerd, it really meant something specific, and it was not culturally desirable. If you were a nerd, you didn't want to be that. But
Right.
chances are, you didn't necessarily have to have a pocket protector, which I never had. But
Right.
if you had your head in the books, if you loved D&D, if you collected comics, you're a
My
nerd.
sister, I saw Star Wars in the theaters at 13,
Mhm.
13 times when I was 13 years old. And my
Yeah.
sister was like, "You're such a nerd."
Yeah.
She always called me a nerd because of that, because I was
Yeah.
so into Star Wars. Yeah.
Exactly. And Patton Oswalt wrote an article about this years ago. He says, there is no more nerd or geek culture. It is
Yeah.
mainstream.
It's culture.
And the
Yeah.
fact that cons have proliferated means, hey, the nerds run the show now, because
Right.
cosplayers, you couldn't be caught dead cosplaying something outside of a specific convention, maybe held in a very quiet, out of the way place. Now you put that stuff on social media and announce
Yeah.
it to the world, and you are actually hailed for
Yeah.
it. Like, wow, that is really amazing.
A lot of times you go to these big conventions like Comic-Con, and the cosplayers are actually the stars, not
Yeah.
the actors, not
Yeah.
the voice actors or whoever.
Oh yeah.
It's them. Can I get a picture with you? Not you, Nimoy. The cosplayer playing one of
Yeah.
your characters. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I am thankful for this happening, because I know what it's like to be an outlier, to sometimes realize that your thinking doesn't measure up with a lot of other. You're not on the same wavelength. You're on different wavelengths. And when you find your tribe, when you find your creator tribe, your actor tribe, your collector tribe, you finally fit in. At least in this sense, cons are a wonderful way for a bunch of people who still might feel outlier, as though they're outliers, to meet up with their tribe.
Yeah.
And
The line in the movie is, there are three main actors in the movie, or characters that are all voice actors. And one is completely into the commerce of cons.
Right.
There's so much commerce going on now at cons. You charge for autographs, you charge
Right.
for posters and all these things. Then there's one other character, the female lead, who is completely all for the fans. She was an anime fan growing up. She just wanted to get into it because she loves the genre.
Right.
And then there's my character, sort of, he needs money, but he appreciates the fans. So he's sort of riding that seesaw between the two. And they walk and talk at one point, and she says to me, "You don't really like the fans, do you?" I'm like, I do, but look at them. And she's like, I think it's great. They are like this, not just here, but like at school,
Yeah.
and they get bullied for being who they are.
Mhm.
But they come here, and like you said, they're with their tribe.
Yeah.
Not only aren't they bullied here, but they can be themselves with
Right.
no fear of judgment.
Right.
They found their tribe, like you said.
Yeah. And this is why I would hope, especially the people that are watching this, that maybe they spend more time at home than they would care to admit, and it's because maybe they have social anxiety, maybe they just don't feel like they can click with other people. And that's understandable. That's understandable. We all don't think and act the same way. But one way that you can create a doorway into the rest of the world is with a con. And even if it's your tribe and then you don't talk to anyone on the way there or on the way coming home, at least you can begin to see that even within the tribe, there are other people that don't always think the same way you do. There's going to be a click within a click. And you realize that everyone's just doing their best to connect. Some people just do it easier than others, but even the athletes, even the models, the beautiful people, very often will admit to a bag of insecurities underneath. But the world treats them differently because upon seeing them superficially, they realize, oh, well, you're automatically placed on a different pedestal.
Yeah.
But it's not uncommon to hear about this.
You know what, cons have taught me that inclusion is for everybody. It really is.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be included in something and everything, you know?
Right.
And you don't have to be left out of the fun.
Right.
You can join it at your own speed if it's just watching.
Yeah.
But you can be there. You can be included.
Yeah.
What that means to you.
Yeah, and this can happen in any realm. I remember that softball, how we got to know each other. You would play in one softball game, and I would play across the field at the other softball game.
And we were both center fielders, which is important.
Exactly. Sometimes
you got to know each
you're
other.
looking, it's like, oh, that guy's up at bat? All right, let me know if he hits one at my head. And we would do that. We would know certain batters. All right, my head's on a swivel now. But your game was kind of constituted the same way mine was. A lot of showbiz people there.
Yeah.
Right? And
mine was musicians and yours was stand-up
mainly
comedians.
comics, yeah. And we had, and I joined the game later. So this was Brant von Hoffman, or Bees. His nickname is Bees. Mm-hmm. So it was the game that he sort of helped run. And he said, we have two rules. You either have to be pretty good at softball or funny.
Funny.
If you're both, that's fine. That's great. If you're funny, it's okay if you suck, right? But if you're no good and you're not funny, it's like you're not going to last at this game.
Exactly.
But we tried to include as many people as we could. I mean, it was about having a good time. And it was competitive, but mainly it was just about, how much fun can we have?
Yeah.
If you distill it to that, even in a pseudo-athletic realm, making sure that other people get a chance to be involved is a really big deal because, you don't want to see what happens to a society that's full of people that feel like they're excluded and disconnected and given a chance to sit at home and fester and go into the wrong chat rooms. Yeah. We already get glimpses of that, and you don't want to perpetuate that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like therapy has worked for you, Chris.
Yeah.
It's taking the edge out of the edge.
Yeah, I remember I would go to softball games sometimes, and I had myself worked up pretty good some days. I would sit there and I would be left to my own devices too much, and I wasn't fully embracing what he was teaching me. It's like, look, you need to spend less time in your head, more time doing these things I'm talking about. Make a list of activities that are going to meet these various needs. Focus on what you can control. If you do that at the end of every day, you're going to feel pretty fulfilled. And gradually, you're going to change your thinking. It took me a while to get into that rhythm. But one thing that never failed to cheer me up was going and playing softball. Yeah. I would get out there. It was a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And I think, what in the hell gets a comic up in time to play softball at 10 a.m. on a Sunday? Do you realize it was just Saturday night and you're telling me to get up? The fact that I got up for that meant I really needed it. Yeah. I really needed it. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I didn't stop going to the game until I moved all the way down to the Palisades, and then I found a pickup game in the Palisades, and now I've moved out. I've found a pickup game where I live now, and the guys are great guys, but none of them really are performers. They're all just, civilians. One guy I think works in craft services for productions and things like that. And everybody, if you live anywhere near LA, you have connections to the business.
It's like a steel factory. We all work in the factory.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're making entertainment. Yeah.
Right. And I still enjoy the fact that I get out and I play. You forget whatever your life is, you forget it for a game or two. And then it's a connection. Yeah. And I try to tell people, making a virtual connection, it counts for something, but it's not the same thing as being around other people. If you can get out and be around other people, you got to just do it in little tiny ways that you can just gradually, go a step further each time, and it is going to change your life.
I agree with you 100%. I encourage people to do that.
Yeah. And I hope at least that the cons get to the point where you can find like a circuit of them that are the sweet spot for you. So that it's not too big and it's not too small where there's still going to be an impact, right?
Correct. But I'll tell you, once I do sort of get the word out and all of that, I'll probably take a few years off from touring conventions
Right.
because it is tiring. It is
It is.
work,
It's a lot.
and you can't make an exit if you can't make an entrance if you never leave.
Right.
There
Right.
are some guys, actors that we all know that do every convention. They
Yeah.
practically make a living
Yeah.
doing it.
Right.
And they will only do jobs that can get like a little
More convention booking. Yeah.
cachet out the conventions,
Yeah.
Like I had a guy beg me to be on Naruto when I was directing Naruto.
Yeah.
Beg me.
Hmm.
And I'm like, you don't even live in the state. It was like, I will fly in. I will pay money to be on Naruto. Why?
Right.
Because once I'm at the convention, I can make a lot of money
Yeah.
saying I'm in Naruto.
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah. It is.
I don't want to
And
be that guy.
no. And you're still pretty busy with directing, correct?
I am. I'm still directing all the time. I'm still writing anime all the time, and
Hmm.
I'm also still writing screenplays. So that's
Right.
how I split my time: anime and screenplays.
Yeah. Now, how big of a crew did you have to have with you when you're shooting this movie? Because you're shooting it at conventions,
Yeah,
correct?
I shot it at two
Two
conventions.
conventions. Okay.
Yeah, but we made it look like it was one convention when the
Okay.
final movie was out.
Right.
We shot it at Anime Los Angeles
Hmm.
when it was oh in Oxnard, I
Okay.
think, and then we did it at Madison, GeekCon in Madison, Wisconsin, which
Okay.
we were saying that was the convention that we were at in the movie.
Hmm.
So I went to like University of Madison Film School, and I just sought
Oh,
out
okay.
film students and graduate film students and recently graduated film students.
Hmm.
And I said the same thing to them. I'm like, I have no money to pay you.
Right.
We're going to make this like a corporation. Everyone gets a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
The more you do, the more piece of the pie you get.
Hmm.
And I just told the brain tumor story pretty much.
Yeah.
That was my currency that I had, my
Right.
story.
Right.
And a lot of people were like, well, I don't know if I believe in the movie, but I've never worked with a Hollywood Emmy Award winning producer before, so
Right.
maybe I just want the experience. And we got more volunteers than we can use, to tell you the truth. Everyone wanted to be a part of it.
That's
Hollywood
great.
coming to Madison, Wisconsin.
That's
And they
great.
were great. They were as good as any crew professionally I've worked with in LA. They were fantastic.
I gotta feel like there's more film literacy now, especially film production literacy now, because of
Yeah.
the internet. I mean, the internet is a tool, and
Mhm.
it's got a lot of tools on it, but it also has a lot of tools in it.
Yeah.
And you can find somebody who has educated themselves about film entirely through YouTube, and they know a lot because they've
Right.
gone to the right channels.
I
And
also reached out to fans.
yeah,
And I got a fan who was a USC graduate,
oh,
film school graduate, who was like, he read the script I was interviewing him to be the director of photography.
hmm,
And he was like, so you really are Wolfwood like you're not playing a guy who played Wolfwood. You really did play Wolfwood in Trigun. You really did direct Digimon, right? You
right,
played Tentomon. Just because the script says it, I want to know you really
yeah,
did, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm in.
and here you go.
That was it. He just was like, that's great. I want to be a part of that.
I've noticed there are directors out there that, like Quentin Tarantino is a prime example. A guy who grew up, he used to say, I didn't go to film school, I went to films.
Yeah.
And when he had a chance to cast people in his movies, especially when he got Power, he went for his heroes. He got Travolta.
Right.
He
Yeah.
courted Travolta to be in his movie. Travolta didn't even want to do it. And Travolta
Right.
admitted, I lost money doing that movie because I flew my family out. I live in Florida. I flew my family out. I lost money. And yet
Right.
it gave him a whole new career. But
Yeah.
if you stay in the business long enough, the
Yeah.
little kids who watch what you're doing one day are going to put you in their project because
Right.
they have power and they've grown up and they can't wait to work with that
Yeah.
actor whose words and readings are still stuck in their head.
Yep. It's crazy. Isn't it crazy how
Yeah.
like grown people come to me at conventions and go, you made my childhood. I'm like,
Right.
how? I feel like I'm still,
Yeah, I'm still a
30.
kid. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Right. And they're grown. They have kids of their own.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And Digimon is still going on, by the way. They're still making more Digimon.
Yeah.
It's
I,
ridiculous.
today, just before I did this interview with you, I
Yeah.
recorded a video game, and the director of the video game told me that he basically was the PA for Jack Fletcher at
Yeah.
Studiopolis. He said
His name
Studiopolis
is
gave him,
Joe.
yeah, Joe. He
Yeah,
says,
I took Joe under my wing when he was a PA at
yep,
Studiopolis.
mm-hmm,
I even introduced him to my cousin who he dated for a while,
uh-huh,
and now he's a big shot. It's
yeah.
great. I love it. Yeah,
He said, "I remember you from Celebrity Deathmatch," and I was Nick Diamond
yeah.
Referee Mills Lane on Celebrity Deathmatch when they brought it
Yeah.
back. And so he says, "I was a PA on that, and I remember specific sessions and this and that." And he was in his early 20s, and I had a blast recording those episodes. And here it is, 17 years later, he's directing me in a project.
Fantastic.
And I have told people this before, people who pick my brain about, I want to get into voice acting. What do I need to
Yeah.
know for my career? I said, there are many things I can tell you. D. Bradley Baker says them better, and I want to be a voiceactor.com. But if you want to listen to me, here's one thing. Be nice to everybody. First of all, because you just should be. There's no reason to
Right.
be a dick, right? For any reason. Just don't be
Especially
a
if
dick.
people are paying you money.
Yeah, exactly. But on
It's
top of
amazing.
that, if you're working, okay, if you're working, then be grateful that you're working. They could have hired anybody else, no matter how talented you are. Someone will climb over you to get that job. And one day, lo and behold, the lowly PA or the assistant at the agency that's answering the phones is
Right.
going to be running the animation division that is okaying shows, or they're going to be directing you, and they're going to remember you. They're going to remember you. Whether you were nice or not, they're going to remember
Yeah.
you.
There's an old expression, today's PA is tomorrow's executive producer.
Yeah.
Uh, and I've been both in my career. And a friend made a movie, and I said, I just want to volunteer to help. She, well, what do you do? I said, I don't care. I'll be a PA.
Yeah.
I was just a PA on her movie. I've had a pretty good career, and here I am PAing her movie,
Yeah.
a short film. And she had like 30-year-old producers, and they were watching me work. And they came up to me one day and said, Jeff, you're like the best PA we've ever seen. You could have a real career in this if you wanted one.
Yeah.
I said, well, you know what they say? Yesterday's executive producer is tomorrow's PA.
Yep.
But this all leads to one giant question, Chris. How come Joe, who I took under my wing, is not hiring me? How come he's not directing me in something? That little bastard.
Joe, if you're watching this,
He's not. He's watching the Red Sox right now. He's
yeah,
not watching.
exactly. Well, this is not the year you want to watch the Red Sox. I'm a Braves fan, and we're okay.
Yes.
But
Well,
yeah,
Mets Braves, we're at it again this year, as always.
yeah, exactly. I do think it's funny when I see somebody not be. I mean, everybody can have a bad day. I've had a bad day where it wasn't like I was mean to anybody, but my enthusiasm flagged. Or
Yeah.
I was a little cranky, or yeah, I gave you the takes you needed, but it took a little longer. And I'd look at that and I say, okay, if you're allowed to have those occasionally, you try to be a professional so they last very short. But then I see people almost as their MO, just be antagonistic.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, you're making it harder on yourself.
Yeah. I wrote an article in my blog about favorite voice actors. You're in that article, by the way.
Thank you.
And I write about, like, what do I look for in a good voiceover actor, and not just the voice, but be on time, which is insane.
Yeah.
How many actors don't show up on time drives you crazy. And don't be an asshole. Those are my two rules.
Yeah.
Don't be on time and don't be an asshole.
Right.
And there are so many that show up late and they're assholes. They got the double whammy going for them. And, it's like I don't care how talented you are. I'll hire a less talented non-asshole than hire you for sure, you know? And this one double whammy winner showed up not only late, but I asked why, and they had a Starbucks cup in their hand. And I had to get
That's
coffee.
never good when you're showing up late.
Right. And I said, it's a recording studio. We have coffee here. That's all we do. We
Yeah.
record things and make coffee. Those are the
Yeah.
two things every recording studio does more than any other thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I tried not to hire that person again.
I
Sometimes casting directors did behind
yeah.
my back, but I won't personally.
Yeah, my general rule is that before the pandemic, when you had to be in lots of different places, you could have sometimes a legitimate excuse for being late because traffic is unpredictable. But beyond 5 to 10 minutes late deserves a phone call. And
Mhm.
even if you're going to be 5 minutes late, just call. I have
Yeah,
never had anybody get mad at me for calling and
right.
saying I'm not going to make it on time. They just want to know.
The lead actress in my movie, she was coming for a session with me, and she was an hour late, but she called,
Yeah,
and I was fine with it. It's
yeah,
like, all right, let me
yeah.
adjust things. But if I have to make that call to the actor, say, "Where are you?" That's
That's
death.
never good.
Death. Yeah.
Never good. Yeah.
I'll never hire that person again.
I would have a rule. I would say, okay, if I'm going to be 5 minutes late, I think I can get away with not calling. They understand.
Yes,
All
I
right. If you're going
agree.
to be more than that, you probably should call. Now
Well,
that I'm recording from home, if my call time is 9 and it's 9:01, I better be on really, really fast because I'm fucking at home. Now I have kids and things happen, but you can text them and say I'm on in 5 minutes. There's so many
yes,
ways to let them know. And for people who might be watching this wondering, well, it's just a few minutes. It isn't just a few minutes. It's the idea that they don't know what's happening right now. The producer, the
hmm
director is wondering, are they okay? Do I need to call somebody else and get them ready to move up their session? Or does this guy think that I have nothing else to
yeah.
do?
I'm also budgeting time and money, and
Yeah,
managing time and money, and
right.
one little monkey wrench, the whole thing gets thrown off. You know,
Exactly.
think
Exactly.
about if you're a dentist. I always say the dentist will see you now when I come out to the waiting room to get another actor to bring
Right.
him in when we do ADR, one
Uh-huh.
actor at a time. And it's like, if a patient doesn't show up for an hour, then the chair is sitting empty for an hour, and now
Yeah.
you show up. What about the guy who's scheduled at 2 o'clock? What do
Yeah.
I do with that person?
Yeah.
And 3 o'clock and so forth. You throw the whole thing in whack,
Right.
and a lot of planning went into this.
Yes. Yes. And I remember I took about the only one of the two workshops I've ever taken in my life. One was for on-camera acting, and
Mhm.
he had been a casting director's assistant, and he had done some acting. He ended up with like a 2-year contract on a soap, so he knew of which he spoke. But he said one of the valuable things about being a casting director's assistant was seeing all the things an actor could do right and wrong in an
Yeah,
audition. And that kind of experience was invaluable.
yeah,
And one of the things I've learned just from my own experience and from watching other actors and watching directors do what they do is anything you can do. It goes without saying because you were cast that you can play the part. That
yeah.
kind of goes without saying. Can you do it in as few takes as possible? And what else can you do while you're there to make it easier for every other swinging dick, every other person? I don't want to be too exclusive here. What else can you do for every person in that
Yeah,
building, not just the room, in that building to make their day easier? What
yeah.
else can you do? Because that will get you back in the door really fast.
If you save a director or producer time and money, they will use you over and over
Yeah.
and over again. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I have a big job I get to do, and every time they book me and every time they record me, I always tell them this is the greatest gig. Thank you so much. I will
yeah,
be here whenever you guys need me. It's awesome. And this is the kind of career where you could say that too, is that I see other people have other jobs. I see other people drag themselves to their jobs that they don't like, that don't pay
yeah.
them enough, that don't give them benefits. And every single morning, I'm very thankful for what I have. And I try to carry that attitude into the booth because a lot of people, I don't know. I don't know why they don't have that attitude. I think most actors do. I think most actors know they've got it good.
I think most of them, but it is funny. The ones who work a lot become jaded, like everyone else,
Yeah.
and it's tough, especially voice actors. There's no makeup trailer to get into.
Right.
There's no wardrobe you have to put on. There's no
Yeah.
lines to memorize.
Right.
I mean, what do
Right.
you have to complain about? It's the best job there is. If you can get
Yeah.
it, good work if you can find it.
Yeah, exactly. I know that I know that I always encourage people to obviously take acting classes because voice acting is acting. I encourage them to, when they can, get on a stage in front of people. You've done improv. You know how
No,
important
it's
it
gonna
is to be
be
able
rough.
to read the room and do something on the fly. Sometimes you're going to be hit with a piece of dialogue and the director may not really have anything. They may say, look, see what you can do with this.
And not only that, it things don't throw you as much
Yeah.
as if you don't have those experiences, and you all of a sudden, I practiced rehearsed this way.
Yeah.
It's stuck in my head this way. Now
Right.
you want to change it? Well, I'm going to ask you to change it anyway, so don't get stuck in anything. Just
Yeah.
go with the flow. Improv helps you go with the flow and not get thrown by things. And it's also in life too. Like I could be in any situation, I will not get flustered because I know through improv, I could probably talk my way out of whatever
Yeah.
it is, even
Yeah.
danger,
I'm going to yes and that police officer right out of this ticket. You know why I pulled you over? Yes, and I'm going to tell you a story. First, I need an occupation. Yeah.
Can I have an object, a brain tumor, and
Yeah. Did somebody say dentist?
an occupation, a neurosurgeon? Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, so yeah, I mean, let's go over some of it. Don't be a dick. Be on time. Make everybody else feel comfortable, right? Make everybody else's job a little bit easier. Work
Serve
fast.
the director, serve the producer.
Exactly. Be ready to adapt because
Yes.
they'll say, hey, we got some new dialogue here. We got something else. And whenever you can, work at your craft. And that means maybe you're not great at accents, but you can cultivate that as a skill. Or even if you're not great at accents, you can see, well, I keep coming across this accent in the breakdowns a lot. Maybe I should at least learn how to do that one.
Yes, but the
Although they are
trend
going more
now-
authentic with
That's
that.
what I was just going to say. The
Yeah, that's
trend
true.
now is
Yeah.
unless you were born with it, they don't want it.
I have
know-
noticed that. Is I used to be
Yeah.
the guy for accents, and I realized
Right.
that not getting that anymore. It's
Well, I
like,
used to also be cartoony voices. They don't even want cartoony voices. They want your voice
yeah,
in a cartoon.
right. And I've noticed that too. It's that okay, well, like I can do a lot of different voices. Yeah, we don't want those.
They don't want that.
We want that one.
Swampy Marsh taught me that. Do you know Swampy?
No.
Swampy Marsh is co-creator of Phineas and Ferb.
Okay.
And I decided to go back into acting after years of directing and asked him, for some advice. And so I took my workshop and I went in there and I did this really cartoony read for him. And he was like, do it again. Just don't do any voice. Just do your voice.
Right.
And then I did it again. He's like, now that's the read. I would call you back in, even if you stunk, because your voice is interesting. That texture and the rasp and the smokiness,
Right.
I can work with that. But if you put on something, then I'm not looking for that. And that's the trend now. So
Right. That'll be interesting to see if that persists because it may become the new normal. There are, and this is something that people watching know. If you have a good mic setup, then you can audition for the same things I'm auditioning for, and I've got a major agency representing me. A lot of projects will go outside of the normal confines to find what they're looking for. What they typically are finding, though, is a lot of these people, they may be exactly what they're looking for, but, they're not really very well trained. Maybe they don't know the studio protocol etiquette, recording, all that. That can be learned, right? But the doors have been thrown pretty wide open, and it is a much more competitive playing field now.
Yeah, because I'm not just auditioning against you now in Los Angeles. I'm auditioning from a guy in Chicago and Atlanta and Seattle and everywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And that that just means that you have to be on your game, and you also have to not beat yourself up because there's the temptation to say, "Oh, well, I used to do these things and now I'm not." It's like it's not you.
Right.
It is just the way things move, and you have to adapt to it.
But also, networking is key in anything,
Right.
especially in this town. I've gotten many, many more jobs from people just calling and saying, I want you for this than I did auditioning, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you auditioned for Ultraman, right?
No,
Jamie
no.
brought you in? Right.
I think Jamie was sitting at his desk and he said, "You want to do some
No,
ADR for me?" Like, sure. I was already there for
no.
something else, and he said, "All right,
Well,
I'll
he
book
and
you
I
for
had a
this."
meeting. Your name came up. So,
Yeah, exactly. And then that
yeah.
led to Ultraman, and
Right.
yeah,
I'm
and then
pretty
this.
sure I gave you your first anime job on Digimon Data Squad. You played a royal knight. The name escapes
Did
me,
I?
but
I'll
I'm
have to
pretty
look in
sure
the
that's the
old
first anime you've ever
IMDb.
done.
Yeah, I know Naruto was one of the first ones, but
Yeah. Well, I directed that too. I don't
yeah,
remember bringing you in, but I might have.
I
I don't
don't even
remember.
remember if I auditioned for Naruto, and
I don't remember
I
either. That's the
really
thing.
don't know. Like I was doing a voice today, and I realized, did I do that voice for the end? Yeah, you did. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I brought you in for both of those, and there were no audition. It was
Yeah,
a guy you played softball with, you know?
exactly.
So that's what I mean, networking.
Well, that's the other thing that people should know is that there's a proving ground, all right?
Yeah.
And the proving ground is sometimes it's the meeting, sometimes it's when you're in the studio. Like, oh, nice guy, seems like he's got some experience in the studio. It didn't quite work out. But if you make it through those proving grounds, you have made life
Right.
easier because casting directors, they don't want to fill their day with trying to find someone. They want to have
Yes.
them so I can
Right.
record this and I can send it off.
I also don't want to spend my time with part-time actors. There are
Mm,
so many part-time actors. I'm a realtor, but I do acting. I
mm,
sell sunglasses, but I'm an actor.
mm.
It's like, well, show up at 9 a.m. I can't, my job. I'm like, this is a job. This is
Yeah,
your job,
yeah.
and the actors are like, yeah, I'll be there. Those are the ones I
Right.
hire,
Yeah. I mean, that's what their day is built around.
And also not being all, well, how big is the part? There is no big part. Like
Yeah.
Steve Bloom's about the work. Steve Bloom will come in and do Walla for me if I asked him to,
Right.
because he's about the work,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And well,
Colleen
that's
O'Shaughnessy recently.
yeah. And people should also know that. I think a lot of people are catching on to this. There's more voice acting literacy as well too. My Twitter, a sizable part of my following are people that either are voice actors or
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to get into the business, and they're
Right.
constantly talking on social media to other voice actors at different levels of the business. And I used to
Yeah.
look at people talking about something they had done, and I would think to myself, I've never even heard of that production, and yet it was a busy production. It's given them a lot of work. They're building up their CV, they're building up their repertoire, they're
Mm-hmm.
building up their experience. And a lot of this is happening in ways that you're never even aware of. The business is much more open now.
Yeah.
And for people to understand that in voice acting, sometimes the lead on a project is being paid exactly the same as a person
Yeah.
coming in to clean up and do ADR.
Absolutely. Favorite
Yeah.
nations. Right.
Yeah, exactly. They may get a different bit of attention at the con, but as you said, if you're not in there, if you're not in the business just to do the cons, you'll understand that everyone's going to have their chance. I've been the
Mm-hmm.
lead on a show. I've been the last person in the credits. They pay relatively the same for most productions. When you become more of a name, you can get more of a quote, but for the most part,
Right.
on Celebrity Deathmatch, the people coming in for one episode getting paid the same as me. I just got
Right.
to do more of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
You got paid the same as Steve Bloom on Ultraman. I'm sure of it.
yeah, most likely. I
I
mean,
know it.
yeah,
I'm telling
yeah, exactly. You've seen the books, but people should know that too about anime. The thing about anime is that it is
Yeah.
it's acting and it's very technical because you've got to match lip flap. You've got to
Right.
sometimes with the director, you've got to try and help rewrite the line. You're thinking this is the translation they sent me, but it's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I write most of the things I direct ADR wise, and luckily,
Right.
I was an ADR actor when I started. So
Yeah.
again, I have a feel for it.
Right.
But when I'm writing it, I'm doing it at the speed I talk.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it at the speed. I'm not writing it at the speed you talk.
Right.
So when we get in there, I might have to rewrite it a little bit.
Yeah, you tinker with it, but you've also got to be. I mean, all acting is putting yourself in the moment. But
Hmm.
if you're doing a video game and you've got 100 call outs, as they say, medic, grenade, door,
Right.
pick up that knife there, you can, as I like to say, you can leave your body sometimes
Yeah.
and give them a completely usable take. But in anime, when you're matching, you cannot leave your body. You have
Yeah.
got to be exactly, not
Right.
in the moment, in the second.
Right. A lot of times when we do our voiceover, we're like moving our arms around, we're
Yeah.
moving our bodies. But in anime, I actually am like, I don't move an inch because I'm just watching those lips, the
Yeah.
lip flaps, and I've got to hit those lip flaps
Yeah.
so closely. Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting. And I was told, I think Joe told me today, he says the way Japanese actors will do this, we're always working off Japanese performances. And he says, sometimes they're all in the same room together. They take turns on the same mic. They've got their scripts in their hands. It's nothing like our experience of this. And Japanese, as the fans of anime will know, some people will be fans of the original Japanese. Some people
Yeah.
will then watch the English. They'll compare a lot of
Yeah, they call them
notes.
subs and dubs, subtitles versus dubbing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you've maybe for your own mental health, you've stopped reading the message boards about those. There are quite a few takes on whether or not my Hedon
Yeah.
is adequate, but the
I
original
bet.
performances are so bloody intense.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how they can maintain it over a session, but it is intense acting.
I prefer the way we do it
Yeah.
personally, but
Yeah.
that's because I get paid to do it the way we do it.
Yeah.
There were a lot of websites when the internet started. I decided to check Google myself, like
Right.
we all. And a lot of websites. Jeff Nimoy should die. Do you know what he did to Digimon? He ruined it. So
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
Now, if it's a thing, someone's mad about it. So I think it's, I don't know, if it's called Rule 34, if it's a thing, there's a porn version of it. Well, if it's anime, somebody's pissed about it. Somebody doesn't like what you did.
Yeah.
I
Well,
remember,
look, Chris. Oh, go ahead.
well, I just remember mispronouncing a name. Mary
Yeah.
McGlynn was directing me, and she said,
Yeah.
don't
Mrs.
say,
Steve Bloom.
yeah, she said, don't say Kakazu. It's Kakuzu.
Kakuzu.
Otherwise they're going to kill you. And it's not Naruto. Don't
It's
call
not
it
Naruto.
Naruto. God forbid you ever do a con and you say, well, I'm Hedon and Naruto. There's going to be a dead silence for a minute.
Jamie Simone still to this day says Naruto, and I'm like, you were the executive producer. You still
It's
don't
not
know
Italian.
Naruto, the
Yeah.
first line of the whole show, Naruto.
Yeah. Yeah. There are, I don't know. I'm sure there are other properties where people are even more feverish in their devotion to it.
Yeah.
Is
Well, I actually
there-
I stopped directing Naruto because it was that type of show where it was just so intense for the fans.
Oh,
I,
really?
I said, Mary, this is much more your type of show. I'm going to
Yeah.
go back to Digimon. I gave it to her.
Wow, that's funny. Is there, okay, I guess maybe Naruto notwithstanding, is there a
Yeah.
show out there that you've worked on or that you've seen where the fan devotion is unrivaled? Is there any property out there where you think those fans have everybody else beat for the way that they watch and pick over and obsess over the show?
It's hard for me to say. First of all, I've worked on so many things. Like
Yeah,
they
you
all
have.
blend. They all blend together at some point.
Right.
But all I know is Digimon the movie,
Mhm.
aside from the show, there were 3 movies in Japan that we dubbed. We made into one movie with one storyline.
Okay.
Sort of, scrapped the whole, translation and started from fresh. And that movie, fans are still talking about it in bunches. There's a Twitter feed, a thread going on Twitter. It's up to sort of something like 45,000 retweets. Forget the likes, just retweets.
Wow.
And all about like the dialogue in this movie.
Okay.
And it's like it won't die. And it's just keep rediscovering. And I guess, though, in retrospect, what filmmaker, I didn't make the film in Japan, but I made the film in America.
Mm-hmm.
What filmmaker doesn't want his film talked about 20 years
Right.
later?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that, and I can only hope anything else I do 20 years from now, including Famous, is
Right.
still talked about. That's all
Yeah.
I care about now. Like Digimon the movie has left such a big impression how fans are still obsessing over it.
Hmm.
I just love it. I just love that it just keeps going. And because of that, they keep making more Digimons, I think, because that fan base is still so rabid.
Well, your movie Famish, which by the
Yeah.
way, you keep hearing us say Famish. It's like, don't you mean famous? Well, it's fame
No.
dash
Yeah.
ish. So he's
Because
famous
right,
ish.
because my
Yeah.
character's not really famous. He's
He's fame
famous.
ish. He has
Yeah.
fame ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
That it could be a harbinger of a genre that will be sort of a referential genre to a movement, a con movement, because
Uh,
I am only aware of one other movie that explores that world. I know that Alan Tudyk did a like a web
right.
series, Con Man.
Con man. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet before that, all I knew about was I think it was comic book the movie. It was Mark
Mark
Hamill's.
Hamill.
Yeah, and it
Right.
takes place at Comic Con. But now that cons have reached this, have permeated our consciousness in this way, it could be that Famish is sort of this tip of the spear. More people are going to want to see content that isn't
Yeah.
just the cartoons, the animated series, the dubs that they love. Maybe they want to see content about the cons.
Yeah.
They want to have more experiences of that experience.
It's interesting for
It's meta, but
after Mark's comic book, the movie, but
mm,
before Alan's Con Men,
mm,
I had a show called Con Men that I was developing
okay.
at Broadway Video with Lorne Michaels.
Oh, really?
And it was a workplace comedy that
Mm,
took place at anime conventions.
mm,
They were these people that made a show and they would travel from con to con to con. I took a lot of those little things and put into Famish
right.
because Con Man uh, went for we developed it for 5 years. We sold it many times, but it eventually got passed and passed and
Right.
passed.
Right.
And finally, MTV bought it. We wrote the pilot, and they passed, and it was over after 5 years of my life. But that would have done it right there.
Hmm.
And they could have had all these things in Famish, this anime, con life, pretty much.
Right.
Every episode would have been a different convention.
Yeah.
And we actually already talked to Microsoft about sponsoring a bus for us to travel
Hmm.
to cons, because now these days, like you said before, 10 years ago, there was a handful every single weekend somewhere in the world. There's an anime convention
There's a con. Yeah.
everywhere,
Oh,
let
yeah.
alone comic book convention,
Right.
anime alone,
Yeah.
everywhere in the world, every weekend,
Well,
somewhere.
that's what I thought was interesting too. When I watched the evolution of San Diego Comic Con, it used to be in the beginning, it was just people trading comic books.
Right.
And maybe Steve Ditko's going to be there, or
Right.
yes, Stan Lee's going to make an appearance. Yeah. So that's what it was about. It was about comic books, and then they still call it Comic Con because it's just branding.
Right.
And of course, virtually every property now has to have been a comic book in some iteration before it makes it in front of your eyeballs.
Yeah.
But now what Comic Con is if you have a production that is about anything, then
Pop
you want to
culture.
be at Comic Con.
Yeah.
And there is, I mean, obviously there are specialized cons, like anime cons. But I would think, even within the world of anime, there's so many little subgenres that perhaps one day their tendrils will stretch out and create their own cons.
Maybe.
Yeah. So,
And I'll be there, hawk and Famish.
well, you should look into the streaming world. Twitch has literally millions of people streaming, and I
Yeah.
know a lot of them are big fans of anime, and
Yeah.
some of them I think do watch parties. Some of them they basically analyze different episodes that they love. YouTube channels, as we know, they are entirely devoted to anime. There's one voice actor I know who basically his entire demo reel is him, and he hasn't become a professional voice actor. His entire demo reel is him doing anime characters that he loves. So, and that's the currency. I would be on my
Yeah.
stream They would say, oh, they wants to know if you can do this character, and I would say, I have no idea what that character is, who they sound like, anything. But to them, it's off the top of their head. No, that's so and so who was in this and that and fought with that guy and uses this kind of jutsu and all this. I'm like, I am so, and I do some of these characters, and I cannot even begin to grasp that world. I think Twitch is an untapped resource for this. I know there are gamers with enormous followings, and they are huge anime fans on top of that. They will play the video game of an anime, and I think we gotta introduce them to you in your movie, because I know they would dig it.
I directed a few video games. I think I directed the first Naruto game. I can't remember, to tell you the truth. I definitely directed Zatch Bell, and Digimon had games I directed. It's usually things that I worked on I direct, game one.
Yeah. And that would be my other piece of advice for fledgling voice actors. It's great that you can do mimicry, because I do mimicry. I've done a lot of voice matching. Voice matching is still really, I mean, they want the ethnicity and the cultural pedigree to match up as much as possible.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of leeway in there where sometimes they just need the best voice. So it's good to be able to do that. But you don't want your demo reel to be entirely populated by you doing an impression of somebody else.
Right. Yeah. I happen to be David Strathairn's go to voice matcher when he can't do it, and it's not on any of my demos.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing people sometimes forget is that you're doing an impression. That's great, and it's really entertaining. Right. If you get in that booth, they're going to play you a clip, and it's not going to sound anything like what you're doing, because that actor doesn't normally sound like that.
You mentioned Quentin Tarantino and Travolta in Pulp Fiction. I got to voice match Tarantino in the clean version of Pulp Fiction.
Really?
Taking out all the curse words, and I dub them over to clean words. But they also said, do you do anyone else? I said, yeah, I do John Travolta. Oh my God, that's so weird. So they're like, all right, let's try that. And up against his voice, I sound nothing like Travolta.
No.
Zero.
Yeah, because in that moment, Travolta, he's not doing Vinnie Barbarino, right?
Oh my God.
He's not doing Danny Zuko.
He's doing his own thing. Oh my God. Nimoy, you're so bad.
Yeah, exactly. I tell this story frequently. I auditioned for a voice match for Giovanni Ribisi for the movie Basic with John Travolta. Yeah. Right? So the night before, I'm watching him in Boiler Room, because I just had to run out and get something with Giovanni Ribisi in it, see if I could get his voice. I'm thinking, I'm in the ballpark. I show up, and it's a bunch of people, and it's one of those auditions where they line you up and they play it in front of all of you, and they say, okay, go.
Go.
And you're all looking at it, what, right now? In front of everybody?
Best one wins,
go. Best one wins. Yeah, basically. So as we're waiting for them to do this, we're all talking, and there's one guy who sounds exactly like Giovanni Ribisi when he talks. His normal voice sounds exactly like him. And this guy knows he sounds exactly like him. And now he knows, we all know he sounds exactly like him. And he's psyching us all out just by chatting. Yeah. And he's just pressing that leverage. And I thought, he's going to get this. They play the scene. Giovanni Ribisi in the scene is in the hospital. He's been injured. And they have him on some sort of morphine drip. And now he's a lot slower and he's lower. Yeah. And I could see the expression on this guy's face change right there. It's like, it's like, that's not me. And I booked it because I was the only guy that could sound like a drugged up, injured Giovanni Ribisi.
There you go.
And so it has everything to do with that particular clip.
I love voice matching. I did John Cusack in a couple of movies.
Oh, nice. I think I did him for one movie that never saw the light of day, but it got made.
Do you know Mick Wingert by any chance?
I know of him. I don't think I've worked with him.
Very good actor. I've worked with him many times. Does a dead-on Robert Downey Jr. and has voice matched him many times.
Okay.
I mean, you close your eyes, you can't tell the difference.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of those times where sometimes you find that you are a natural match for somebody.
Yeah.
And if that falls in your lap, you're in good shape.
I know. I wish David Strathairn worked more. That's all.
Oh yeah. I once
Or at least I wish he was unavailable for dubbing.
Exactly.
Afterwards.
Dude, why are you so free all the time? Come on. Can't you be doing a play? Just be unavailable, please, for me. I got to make my P&H here. Yeah. I remember once I booked a Gabriel Macht voice match because I was the only one that showed up.
Yeah.
So it was for the movie Bad Company with Chris Rock and Anthony Hopkins, and it was at Bruckheimer's production company, his facility. It was in Santa Monica, and it was in one of those streets that dead ends and then picks up a couple of blocks over. Nobody could find it. I was the only one that found it. I showed up.
That's amazing.
And the guy kept coming out. I did my reading. It was, okay, hang out. And he kept coming out. Like, there's nobody else. All right, hang out. We're going to wait. And he waited. And he says, we can't wait any longer. And he says, well, you were pretty close anyway. You got the job.
Yeah, right on.
I made it to the gig and I booked it.
90% of luck is showing up.
Showing up, exactly.
Yep.
Well, I am glad you are continuing to show up. I've, 2 hours we've been at this. Has it been 2 hours?
I know,
Yeah, it's been
crazy.
about 2 hours.
Well, when we get together, man, we're Gab Fest.
Exactly. I might make it out to one of those softball games one of these days, but it's still Sunday morning, isn't it?
It's still Sunday morning. It's 11 o'clock, though. It's a little later than
A
10.
little more doable.
So after your, a little breakfast, a little coffee, you can come out.
Yeah, exactly.
The freeway, the 101's empty at that time of morning.
It is.
Come on out. And,
It is.
you'll see some old friends. You'll like I said, there's still plenty of guys from your game that have merged into my game after your game sort of
Yeah,
left.
it broke up. Yeah, exactly. It's
when Lenny Schultz left, that sort of ended the whole thing.
Lenny, I guess, was maybe the engine for a lot of the enthusiasm.
Yeah, but I think only though one of the guys is still doing stand up. That's a place where that's Chris Porter.
Oh yeah,
Chris
Porter.
He's still doing stand up, but all the other guys are still playing, but they've all given up their careers. They've left show business. Porter's still on the road all the time. So.
Wow. It's funny because I thought if you lived out here, you never completely gave up show business. All right. Well, everybody look up Famous. Where can people see it right now?
Well, if you want to watch it for free, it's on Tubi and the Roku channel with limited commercial interruption. Mm-hmm. Or if you want to spend $2.99, it's everywhere on pay-per-view, wherever you watch movies.
Gotcha.
Even like PlayStation, like everywhere, literally.
Okay. Gotcha. So you can rent it. You can also, I take it, you probably buy it.
You could buy it. It's on YouTube. It's on Apple. It's on Amazon. Really everything.
Okay.
Or you can buy it for like $20, I think.
Gotcha. So it's out there and is very easy to find. In fact, it's hard not to find it. You'd have to actively try not to find it. So it is available. It is ubiquitous. And it'll make you feel as good as watching an episode of Ted Lasso.
It's the feel good movie of the pandemic. It really
sure
is.
Yeah. So check it out. And in the meantime, Jeff Nimoy, always a pleasure. And we'll have to when your back is better, we'll have to play some softball.
Absolutely. Great catching up with you, Edge. Love to see you in person again.
Oh yeah.
So take care, buddy.
I will be around. All right.
Thanks for having me.